Rasheeda Mins and Young Jock's drama has reached a breaking point, and what comes next will leave you stunned. Young Jock made a startling charge that is destroying the foundations of the friendship between the two reality stars, just when everyone thought the animosity between them couldn't be much worse. When Young Jock claims that Rasheeda is pregnant and that Mendeecees, not her husband, is the father, fans are astonished. The night started out like any other, with dim lights, laughter, and light conversation, since it was only the start of what might be the largest scandal in reality TV history. Rasheeda's reputation is at stake. The police are involved. And the accusations have started a series of events that could cost Jay everything. Everyone is wondering how long this explosive drama will last, as what started out as a furious dispute has now escalated into a full-scale war. When Rasheeda observed Jock's expression, something in the air altered, even though she was there as usual, captivating everyone with her customary grace. She was aware that something was off, that something unexpected was on the horizon, and then it suddenly happened. Jock moved forward, his voice piercing the cacophony. His rage hardly contained. He yelled, "You think I'm blind?" However, everything changed that night when Young Jock came in, his eyes ablaze with an allegation that no one had anticipated and his face taut with rage. She tried to stay calm, but her voice was trembling as she asked, "What are you talking about? Screaming? I know what's been going on," he shouted. Rasheeda froze, looking around the room for something to ground her in the present. But this time, she wasn't taken by surprise. Instead, the Jock made an even more scathing accusation, pointing with his finger at her. Rasheeda's head was reeling from the shock and her heart was pounding. How could Jock say such a thing? What right did he have to make such a suggestion? She was about to defend herself by laughing it off, but Jock wasn't finished. "I guess you think I'm a fool. You Mendeecees, see? You think I don't know you? Think I don't know you're pregnant with his child?" she inquired. Everyone in the room was watching and waiting as the air grew thicker and the place went silent. There was a noticeable tension. Finally, in a steady but strained voice, she said, "I have no idea what you're talking about." Rasheeda felt her breath catch in her throat as the accusations sliced through everything she had built and everything she had worked for. "This is a crazy joke. You've lost your mind," but Jock was relentless. "You're pregnant, Rasheeda. You can't hide it anymore. You and Mines have been sneaking. Think I can't see through your little games? The whole world can see it. Everyone can see it." She was momentarily unable to think clearly as the room appeared to revolve around her, and the faces of those observing her became blurry. Despite the ups and downs of their years together, she had never thought she would cross the Mendeecees line. But Jock's voice cuts through the chaos, and his words keep echoing in her head. "I know what I witnessed and what's happening, so don't act like I'm a moron." When she finally exclaimed, "You're insane, Joke," her voice rose with the intensity of her feelings. Before she could defend herself and clarify that everything was a misunderstanding and that Jock was wrong, something inside of her exploded. "How dare you say that about me? How dare you make these accusations without any proof? You think you can just throw my life away because of your jealousy and jealousy?" Something sinister and perilous flashed in the insecurities Joke's eyes. "Rasheeda, you believe I'm envious, but it's about the truth. The time has come for everyone to learn the truth about your deceit. Your fame and your small, dreamy world are no longer enough to conceal you." Rasheeda's heart thumped in her chest and her hands trembled with anger and dread. She was shocked that this was taking place in this manner. After years of being in the public eye, building a name, a family, and a job she was now in is untrue. "You're mistaken." But Jock was not paying attention, his face contorted in rage, his jaw so clenched that it appeared as though he was about to blow up. "I'm not mistaken. Rasheeda, when the world discovers what you've been concealing, don't come to me in tears like you should." For a split second, someone she considered a friend, someone who was meant to support her, was tearing everything apart. Unable to believe what had just transpired, Rasheeda remained motionless, her emotions in turmoil and her mind racing. She turned to her closest friends, her voice trembling. "I can't believe he—" Before Joke turned and bounded out of the room, leaving a trail of shock and disbelief in his wake. She couldn't believe the words Joke had thrown at her, the accusations that now hung in the air like a dark cloud. The hours that followed were a blur. Rasheeda attempted to call Kirk, but he was unavailable. And she attempted to reach Mendeecees, but he was not answering his phone. She felt alone in a sea of silence, as if everyone had deserted her. As everyone was still reeling from the horror of what had just transpired, she exclaimed, "I can't believe he would accuse me of something like that." But no one knew how to respond. Although they were all aware of young Jock's tendency for impulsivity, he was unique. Although Rasheeda was certain in her heart that young Jock's remarks would ruin everything she had fought for, she was unaware that this was only the beginning. The world would soon learn the truth. The consequences of this night would reverberate throughout her life in ways she could not yet fully understand. Sitting in the mental quiet, trying to digest the shock, fury, and hurt that now consumed her was the only thing she could do. Her whole world seemed to be falling apart, and she was powerless to stop it. When she attempted to call Mendeecees once again, his phone went straight to voicemail, and the uncertainty and fear were only heightened by the unanswered calls. What was his opinion? Did he think Joke was telling the truth? Her chest began to sag with the weight of incredulity. But the accusation of infidelity wasn't the only thing that hurt. Anyone would be devastated by it alone. She watched the world without her for hours, pacing her living room and gazing out the window. What was Jock capable of? How could he have destroyed everything they had constructed with such ease? He knew her. They had experienced too much together, laughed too much, and talked late into the night for him to suddenly turn on her in this way. Everything had been fine, or so she believed, and she raced as she attempted to put together what had gone wrong. She could always count on them, and they had always been good friends, but this was more than she could have ever dreamed. The most difficult aspect was not knowing where her spouse was in all of this. It was as though he had vanished into thin air because he had not called her since the night of the event. Was he out there hearing the rumors? The quiet was deafening. Could he believe what Jock had said? She tried to quiet the fury inside of her by closing her eyes, but all she could think about was the mayhem Jock had caused. Her phone chimed and her heart briefly raced. Missed a beat. She opened the message hoping it was from Mendeecees, but it was from an unknown number. But as the message loaded, she was appalled to realize that it wasn't Mendeecees, but rather a grainy video of her with a joke from that night's quarrel. Even though the video was only a minute long and of poor quality, it was enough to do great injury because she could see the harsh language and rage that the world now had a front row. See, too, the most embarrassing moment of her life. Her private life was no longer under her control. It was publicly available for everyone to observe, evaluate, and judge. The video ended before Jock's final comments, but it was clear what had transpired. Wondering how they could have done this? To her, she sat down on the couch with trembling hands and watched the tape again. She was aware of how the media worked and how controversy drove people, but this was different. This was her life, her dignity, her family, the video, and now. The comments were flooding in. Most were denouncing her, but few were on her side. The presumptions and charges included: she looks guilty, she must be hiding something, she's lying, and more. The pain was excruciating, and every single comment felt like a kick to the belly. But it was just the beginning. The hours went by. Rasheeda could not escape the constant stream of alerts from admirers and followers. Every alert on her phone seemed to be a constant reminder that her life was no longer hers. Like a black cloud, the shame started to creep in. She felt as though the charges were eroding her identity, even though they were wholly baseless. Did Jock have any truth in his words? Did the no circulating video contain any truth? She started to be plagued by doubt. Was there anything Mendeecees could have done to convince Joe to believe the rumors? Had she miscalculated their connection? The solutions were elusive, and the questions were interminable. Rasheeda was unable to remain confined. With a sorrowful heart and a bewildered head, she picked up her purse and went to Mendeecees' house. The one location she hoped would offer some explanation. The events of the past few days kept coming back to her as she drove, and she was unable to shake the sense of betrayal that had taken root in the pit of her stomach. Jock had done this, but why? Did he have more to say, or was it just an outburst? The Mendeecees thought, unaware of what to anticipate, but certain that she couldn't do it alone. She took a deep breath when she arrived at his house before pounding on the door. She was being torn apart by involvement, even if it was only conjecture. And now she felt burdened by the idea that their friendship might have resulted in this betrayal. He was standing there, looking as bewildered and hurt as she did when the door opened. She joked, "I don't know how to reach you. I need answers," in response to his timid, low voice. Mendeecees stepped aside to allow her entry inside the house, and his eyes were mournful, as if he was struggling to comprehend the mayhem that had erupted all around them. Rasheeda's heart sank as he replied in a low voice, "I've seen the video and I don't know what to say." His admission only served to emphasize how rapidly things had gotten out of control. But as she listened to him talk, she had an idea that she hadn't considered before. "Have you told him anything that would make?" he interrupted, shaking his head and adding, "I don't know what his game is, and I don't know why he's saying these things." Rasheeda struggled to speak for a moment, her mind still racing. But Mendeecees' words helped her relax a little. "How do we resolve this? Then what now? How do I prevent it?" Mindy stepped forward and asked, her voice barely audible above a whisper. While he was saying it, Rasheeda knew that the truth might not be enough, because once something like this was out in the world, it was almost impossible to undo the damage. All she could do was try to navigate the storm to prevent herself and her family from being torn apart by the fallout. But she knew deep down that was just the beginning, and that the real battle was just beginning. With a hand on her shoulder, "We start by making sure that the truth is revealed, because we cannot allow this lie to continue." The accusations hadn't subsided, and now every time she opened her phone, the world was there to remind her of the scandal, the video, the comments, the whispers and the whispers. The most painful part, however, was Kirk Rasheeda's silence. She couldn't understand why he hadn't contacted her, and her mind was racing with confusion, anger, and a deep sense of betrayal, because she had spent years with him developing a relationship. People stared at her with judgmental eyes everywhere. She went, and even her closest friends seemed distant, unsure of what to say or what to believe. The silence was more deafening than any accusation Jock could have made if he had believed joke was the end of everything they had created. But she felt as though she was left to fend for herself alone after all of this. She couldn't just sit in the dark any longer. She needed to hear it from him, to know where they stood, and whether their marriage could withstand the storm that Jock had started. The air felt heavy as she drove to their house, the weight of what was approaching pressing down on her chest. She parked outside and gazed at the house that used to feel like a haven. She took a deep breath and rang the doorbell, but the sight of it made her stomach turn. Kirk answered after a little while, his face displaying a mixture of exhaustion and something she couldn't quite place, but there was a distance in his eyes that hadn't been there before. "Rasheeda, we need to talk," he said softly, his voice almost distant, and she nodded as they entered the house and sat down in the living room. The quiet between them was like a huge, unforgiving ocean, and the tension between them was palpable. She murmured, "I don't even know." Kirk moved uncomfortably, avoiding her eyes as Rasheeda continued, "Where to begin?" in a weak voice. "Why haven't you called me? Why haven't you been here for me, okay?" He said. "I've been trying to figure things out," in a strained tone. Rasheeda's heart fell as she said, "This is a lot of Jock's accusations. I didn't know what to think. After everything we've been through, you're starting to mistrust me? I'm not sure whether to believe you or Mendeecees, but I couldn't help but wonder if Jock's statement had any merit. I'm not accusing you of anything, Rasheeda, but this whole situation is a mess. I need time to think, she added, her voice rising resentfully as the words hit Rasheeda like a slap and her face stiffened. You need time to think about whether or not you trust me. Kirk didn't. Rasheeda pushed back the tears and her chest constricted. It wasn't meant to be this way. They were meant to be a team and face everything together, but suddenly it felt like they were on different sides of an insurmountable divide. Rather than answer immediately, he scratched his face with his palms as though he was trying to think. It's not that easy. A lot is happening, and I can't keep acting like nothing is wrong when it seems like everything is collapsing. Oh, she muttered. I didn't do what he said. Rasheeda abruptly got to her feet, the unfiltered emotion bursting from her core. Do you want the truth? I have, in fact, been faithful to you. The words were almost audible, and the fact is, I've never looked at men like that. His eyes softened as he looked at her, but the doubt was still there. I would never hurt you like that. Never, Perk, he replied. Kirk finally added, I didn't want any of this to happen in a tense tone. I never wanted to doubt you, Rasheeda. But joking, she said, turning away from him since she could no longer bear to look at him. The comment struck her harder than she had anticipated, and for a while, there was stillness between them. The air seemed heavy with everything that had been left unsaid. The truth is that Jock has ruined everything. He's torn us apart. And you're sitting here questioning me instead of standing by my side? The accusations weren't the only thing at stake. Their relationship had been strained for longer than she wanted to admit. She said softly, I don't know if we can fix this, Kirk, with obvious sadness in her voice. Kirk first said nothing, and just sat there, the tension between them nearly obvious. I don't know if I can keep living like this, wondering if you're ever going to believe me again. After a lengthy pause, he continued, I don't want to lose you, but he wasn't sure how to go. I don't know how to move forward either, she whispered, but I can't do this alone. Kirk stood up and walked over to her, placing a hand on her shoulder. He said nothing, but the silence between them felt different. Not the silence of doubt, but the silence of two people who persevered even when it seemed like everything was falling apart. Rasheeda wiped away her tears, realizing that this conversation was about more than just her feelings. As Rasheeda left the house, she took a deep breath and looked up at Kirk, saying, We'll figure this out together, her voice growing stronger. Kirk nodded, but there was still a ghost of uncertainty in his eyes. It wasn't the end of their story or their relationship, but it was a turning point when everything changed. The road ahead would be tough and full of obstacles, but she wasn't ready to give up just yet. Rasheeda felt as though she was caught in a never-ending cycle of confusion and turmoil. While the world continued to move at breakneck speed, the fallout from young Jock's accusations had not only devastated her relationship with Kirk and Mendeecees, but it had also ripped through the very fabric of her life, and the public scrutiny was smothering the whispers. Her mind was still racing with questions, and she had no answers yet, but she was determined not to let them destroy everything she had built. Everywhere she went, whether it was on social media, in the tabloids, or at the grocery store, people had questions and opinions. But the one question that kept coming back to her was the one that haunted her every night. How did this happen? Her phone had been ringing nonstop since that night, with some messages from harsh people accusing her of lying and pointing fingers at her, and others from friends and fans who believed in her. One message in particular stood out. Young jokes. I hope you're ready for the fallout. This is just the beginning, Rasheeda. The message made her shudder. How could he be so cold-hearted? How could someone who had been a friend and confidant turn on her so easily? The words didn't make sense. Joel had always been part of her social circle, and now he was publicly trying to destroy everything she had worked so hard to build. She wasn't sure what to make of his words. Was he just trying to get under her skin? Or was there something more sinister at work? Rasheeda needed answers. She had been trying to reach him outside of Mendeecees' house for the past few days. but he had been as unresponsive and aloof as everyone else. She couldn't blame him, even though he must have been just as bewildered and hurt, but she couldn't avoid the conversation any longer. So she rang the doorbell and waited, her hands shaking. A few seconds later, the door opened and there he was. Looking as tired as she was, his eyes heavy with fatigue. "Rasheeda," Mendeecees said, "despite the turmoil inside of me, we need to talk." He stepped aside to let her in, and they sat down in the living room. The silence between them was thick and uncomfortable, and Rasheeda wasn't sure where to begin. She knew they couldn't keep acting like nothing was wrong, so she finally said, "I need to know what's going on." His voice was low and cautious, and he didn't seem surprised to see her, but there was an unspoken tension in the air. Mendeecees leaned forward, his face full of frustration. "I don't know, but I do know that there's more going on with him than just you and me. He's been acting strangely for a while now. Maybe he's jealous, or maybe he's just trying to stir things up. But whatever it is, he's been acting strangely." "I don't know, Rasheeda. I really don't. I've been trying to figure that out too. But he's been acting strangely. Never seen him like this." Rasheeda nodded slowly, her mind racing. She knew the truth. She knew that there was nothing between her and Mendeecees. It's just friendship and respect. But Jock wasn't concerned about it. It's messed up. Rasheeda felt confused and hurt. But what could he possibly be jealous of? Mendeecees repeated himself in a confused tone. But whatever it is, it's gotten into his head. He's been saying things to people that try to turn them against you and me, making it seem like there's something going on between us. Mendeecees said, her voice breaking with emotion. "I don't know how to fix this. I've spent my entire life building a brand and a reputation, and now it's all falling apart because of one lie. We'll figure it out. You're not alone in this. I'm not going anywhere." He was out to destroy her and everything she owned. And now it felt like no matter what she did or said, it was too late. Together, we'll handle anything with Jock. When Swiftly's phone buzzed again, it was a news alert with a headline screaming across the screen that young Jock had accused Rasheeda of having an affair with Mendeecees. The police were involved in the investigation, and Rasheeda's heart sank. The situation had just gone from a minor accusation to a full-fledged public spectacle. How could it get any worse? As she gave him the news alert, she added, "Look at this." Rasheeda stared at the screen, feeling the weight of the situation weigh down on her. How had it gotten this far? How had Jock managed to turn her life into a public spectacle? More importantly, what was his endgame? Was he trying to ruin her? Was he trying to ruin everything she had built? Mendeecees muttered, "This is crazy. We need to stop this before it gets any worse." Before she could say anything more, Mendeecees said, getting out of hand, "The police are involved." Jock has now elevated it to a completely new level. Mendeecees added determination in his voice. Rasheeda nodded slowly. "But how do we counter a lie that has already gained widespread attention? We go to the media and tell our side of the story. We don't let Jock control the outcome." The thought of going public was horrifying, but the longer they let the whisper circulate, the more she realized Mendeecees was correct. You deserve better than this. The drama is far from over, and as the pieces continue to fall into place, the truth will eventually be revealed. Rasheeda took a deep breath and decided that if they didn't do something, the lie would become the truth in the eyes of the public. However, even as she spoke, a cold feeling of dread settled in her stomach. She wasn't sure how to respond to someone who was willing to destroy everything for the sake of a lie. And she wasn't sure how much more she could take, but she knew that she wasn't going down without a fight. We'd like to hear your thoughts as the story unfolds. Will Rasheeda and Mindy's efforts to correct the record be enough to stop the damage? Or will young Jock get away with spreading lies? Rasheeda's reputation, her family, and everything she has worked for are all at stake, and the battle for the truth is just getting started. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any updates on this explosive drawing. What do you think Rasheeda can do to fix this problem? What would you do if you were in her shoes? Please share your ideas in the comments area below. This story is far from over, and we'll be giving you the latest details as the truth is revealed.